First round game for Notre Dame versus Indiana, an in-state matchup. Who in the heck would have thought Indiana in the playoff and Notre Dame home playoff game? Huge game for Indiana, just the state of college football there. And I think this is going to be a really good one. Indiana obviously led by Curt Cignetti. Notre Dame led by Marcus Freeman, two really good football coaches. Cignetti, he's had some success with JMU in the past in the Sun Belt, and of course he coached with Nick Saban a little bit before he really became the head coach at some lower levels and ended up working his way up to Indiana. Of course, in his first year, had a great turnaround there for the Hoosiers. He got the number 10 overall seed and get to go in probably one of the greatest environments that will ever be had. First year of the 12-team college football playoff. One of the first home playoff games is going to be at Notre Dame. So unbelievable atmosphere there in the stadium. But really, first thing you got to look at when you start talking about the playoffs is just the defenses. Who's going to be the team that really dominates at the line of scrimmage and wins the football game? And one thing that a lot of people don't really understand about Indiana is they see the numbers offensively, they see all this stuff, but their defense is unbelievable. Probably one of the best defenses. Obviously, they haven't played just a ton of teams. We'll talk about that later. But as far as run defense, they're number one in the country. They only give up 76.2 yards per game. That's unbelievable. And, of course, when you're only giving up 76.2 per, now they're only giving up 2.6 yards per rush. So, really, Notre Dame's offense predicated on the run. Quarterback run with Riley Leonard. Obviously, the other backs getting in there and creating explosive plays in the run game. But Indiana's defense, that's their strength, stopping the run. Only 76 yards per game, number one in the country. Going to be tough to run on, so this is going to be probably a low-scoring game because we know how good Notre Dame's defense is as well. Of course, Notre Dame's defense is no slouch either as far as controlling the line of scrimmage. Only giving up 138.8, but that's number 44 in the country, and they give up 3.7 per rush. So really give up 1 yard more per rush than Indiana's defense, and of course, not many people are talking about that. Indiana's defense is absolutely stout. Their defense overall is actually number 3 in the country as far as yards. They give up only 256 yards. Notre Dame's number 7 in the country, of course. Marcus Freeman, known for defense, giving up 296. So giving up about 40 more yards per game is Notre Dame defense than Indiana's defense. So that's really impressive. Something I didn't know until I started diving into this game, that Indiana's defense is probably one of the best in the country and is going to make it really tough to run the football for Notre Dame. Now looking at both offenses, both of them are absolutely rolling right now. I mean, the most important thing, though, I believe, is who's going to control the line of scrimmage. Of course, we talked at the beginning about how both defenses are really good at stopping the run, top 10 in the country. Indiana is actually number 1, but Indiana is averaging 40.3, and that's number 2 in the country as far as scoring, and Notre Dame's averaging 39.8. So again, cutting hairs right here, 39.8 to 40.3, really similar as far as scoring, and both are really efficient. And you're looking at how many points per play there are. Indiana scores 0.598 points per play. So think about that. Every single play they run, they average basically scoring 0.6 points. So that's really impressive. Of course, Notre Dame is actually above them. Notre Dame is number 1 in the country, and they score 0.622 points per play. So that means however many plays they have, they divide that by however many they score, and that's what they get points per play, and that's 0.622, and that's number 1 in the country. So extremely efficient there for Notre Dame. Of course, defense has to set that up, and the way that defense sets that up is obviously turnovers. And again, of course, these guys are both in the playoffs, so both of them got to be great at the turnover margin. Notre Dame is number 2 in the country, and they're plus 1.3 is what their average. So right there, whoever's plus in this game in turnovers is going to win the football game because they're going to set them with a short field. Defense is going to be hard to run the ball against. With Notre Dame number 2 in the country, Indiana's not far behind, number 5 in the country. Plus 1.1 is what they average as well. So plus 1.1 to plus 1.3, not much of a difference. It really just depends on how a couple of these bounces of the ball go. Maybe Riley forces the ball to the middle of the field. There's an interception that may return back to the 5-10 yard line and set Indiana up for a touchdown or maybe a field goal late, something along those lines. That could be a difference in this game. Of course, same thing going the other way. Rourke, could end up fumbling the football, something along those lines, and giving Notre Dame a short field, letting them run the football 2 or 3 times against the end zone without having to go the entire length of the field against a really good defense. And, of course, whenever you get into the playoffs, it's going to be cutting hairs. Both these teams are really good. Now, a couple things to look at. Talent composite. Who has the most talent? Blue chip guys. Now, of course, this hadn't really mattered all year, but Indiana has a number 57 talent composite. Notre Dame has number 9. Notre Dame has a top 10 talent roster. Indiana has top 60, with Indiana number 57. So, just based off of a talent composite, Notre Dame should have a big edge, but I really don't see that being just a huge factor. I think Indiana is more talented than that composite shows. And, of course, the way that you can do that is having a guy that's an absolute dog at quarterback, and that's Curtis Rourke. For Indiana, his 6th year in college football, 4th as a starter. He started at Ohio before he came to Indiana, and he was an absolute baller at Ohio. He's out there ripping the ball around, and so far this year, 2,800 plus passing yards, 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So had a really good year. I mean, he's absolutely balling. But also, on the other side, you talk about Riley Leonard, came in from Duke. This is his third year starting. He started at Duke for 2 years now. He's at Notre Dame. He has over 2,000 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Of course, Rourke has 11 more touchdown passes, which is based on what their offense does. And, of course, I think Rourke is a much better passer. But Riley Leonard rushes for 721 yards. He's had 14 touchdowns rushing, 5.8 per carry. So, to me, whenever you're looking at how this matchup is going to play out, it's going to be cold. It's December in Indiana. South Bend, Indiana, going to be an unbelievable environment. But the team that runs the ball and is able to control the clock is going to be the team that gets out of there with a win. And Curtis Rourke's going to be a little bit more of a pocket guy. Now, of course, if he gets hot and he gets going and those guys can get open against the defense, which they're going to have to win one-on-ones, obviously Notre Dame's going to be playing a lot of man coverage. If they can win those one-on-ones, they've got a chance because Rourke is a guy. But Riley Leonard's rushed for 721 yards and Rourke has rushed for minus 25. So just being a little bit more dynamic at the quarterback position, I think in this game is going to be the difference. And, of course, being in South Bend is going to be a huge difference as well. Then looking at just the schedules, man. Everybody's talking about Indiana having a cakewalk of a schedule and some teams that they've played, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan, which Michigan's a lot better win now than it was whenever they played it. And then Ohio State is their loss. They lost pretty handily in the horseshoe to another playoff team, the only other playoff team they played. But a lot of teams have done that. So not just a ton of big wins there for Indiana, but they took care of business. Now, they're the number 67 strength of schedule in the country. That's only 8 above Notre Dame. Notre Dame's number 59 strength of schedule. They did beat A&M early in the season at A&M, so I thought that was a really big win. As the season went on, it turned into an even bigger win. But so they beat A&M, beat Louisville, Georgia Tech. They had Navy, Army, and then that USC win at the end of the year. I think that's a lot better win than it looks like on paper. Just a 6-6 USC team, but I think they're better than that as far as talent. And they had a lot of extremely close games, so I thought that was a big win on the road there for Notre Dame. Obviously, I'm not sure if they would have been in the playoffs if they'd lose that game. But huge wins. 59 in the country as far as strength of schedule, so only 8 spots above Indiana. And everybody's talking about Indiana's strength of schedule being down. So I really don't think that there's just a huge discrepancy in schedules. And both teams have really dominated so far who they've played. But the spread on this one is 8.5 right now. Our spread actually has it at 8 for Notre Dame, so pretty comparable. But to me, I really think this game is going to be a tight football game. I think it's going to be a field goal game, 3 points, one way or the other. But to me, the legs of Riley Leonard and the run game, Jeremiah Love, those other guys, and the rest of the running backs getting out there in space, I think they're going to make the difference. So to me, I'm going to take Notre Dame by 3. I think it's going to be closer than what people think. Because I really think Indiana is going to be fired up for it. They're a good football team. Their defense is going to come to play. It's going to travel. And it's going to be hard to score on either one of these teams. So a field goal is going to be the difference here, I believe, for Notre Dame. They'll get to move on to the second round, go down to the Sugar Bowl, and play Georgia. That would be a huge matchup for either team. Of course, not sure what Georgia's going to have. Quarterback may be out. But either way, this is going to be a dogfight. If you just think this is going to be a cakewalk for Notre Dame, you hadn't seen Indiana, you hadn't looked into them, man. Their defense is good. Quarterback is really good, not quite as dynamic as Riley Leonard with his legs, but he's going to make plays. So it's going to be an awesome game, awesome atmosphere. And this game is actually going to be the very first home playoff game in the history of home playoff games. Couldn't happen in a better environment there in South Bend, Indiana, one of the most historic venues in all of college football. But I really appreciate you guys watching. Click right here because this is what YouTube thinks that you like. And we'll see you guys again in the next video.